Good morning, Junior Rangers, and welcome to Crystal Cove State Park. I'm Park Naturalist Winter, and this week we've been focusing on beautiful birds. Now, one of the most identifiable characteristics of birds are their sounds. In fact, if I close my eyes right now, I can hear lots and lots of different sounds coming from every direction. Big birds, small birds, squawks, creaks, crackles, and beautiful sounds. Now, sometimes their songs can be sweet and melodic. Other times they can be sad and mournful. Sometimes their calls can be harsh and raspy, and other times they may be haunting. I can think of at least 5 reasons why birds call. You may be able to think of different reasons. One would be the babies calling for their moms and dads to bring them food. Another reason would be if a bird is alarmed, they're scared, and they're trying to figure out what's going on. Another reason birds call is to say, "Get out of my territory, you're getting too close." Another reason is when birds are mating, they may call to try to find one another. And the final reason that I know of is when birds are just trying to find their peeps. Today, we're going to play songs from this fabulous book called Bird Songs, 250 North American Birds in Song, and I've chosen 9 songs of different birds that we would find right here at Crystal Cove State Park, either along the shoreline or in the backcountry wilderness. And the way it works is I'll play a sound and you'll hear it 3 times and you'll try to figure out if you know what bird that is. So let's get started. Now, the first sound we're going to play is a pretty easy one. I bet you'll know this. So let's listen. Do you know what it is? I bet you do. That's the sound of a mallard, probably the most common bird or common duck that we find here in North America. Now, we don't see them in our wilderness area and we aren't seeing them on the beach, but we do see mallards sometimes in the creeks here at Crystal Cove, and I've even seen a mom, a dad, and their ducklings on more than one occasion. Now, that one was pretty easy. Let's see if we can find one that might be a little bit harder. Can you hear all those sounds in nature right now? Okay, here we go. Ready? Well, I know you're probably thinking that sounds like a dog barking, but we don't have dogs here, and that is not the sound of a dog. That's the sound of, follow me over here, to this bird, which, as you will know, is a gull. In this particular case, it's a ring-billed gull, and although it sounded like it was barking, that's the call of a ring-billed gull, and we see them all the time hanging around on the sand here at Crystal Cove. That was kind of a tough one. Let's see. Okay, I'm going to find one of my favorite morning sounds that we hear from a beautiful bird in the morning. Now, I also forgot to mention, you can see behind me, we have a bunch of different birds. All of these are real, but they're no longer alive. And as state park naturalists, we're allowed to have these taxidermed specimens that we can use for education. So we didn't hurt any of them. Okay, you ready for the next sound? Here we go. Now, I said that was one of my favorite sounds that I hear in the morning, and I did mean like the time of day, but that beautiful, sweet sound comes from a bird called a mourning dove, mourning as in sad or mournful. And I'm going to show you that sweet, cute little bird. These birds, the reason I said we hear them in the morning is because they are diurnal, which means they sleep at night and wake up during the day. And they're very active in the morning, and that's when we get to hear that sweet, sweet sound. Okay, how about this one? Now this one's going to sound familiar to some of you. And if you've ever been here to Crystal Cove, I bet you've heard this. Now that sound is the call of the California state bird. In California we have cymbals, and that's the sound of the California state bird. And you might know it. It is this bird up here in the tree. That's the California quail. This is a male quail. I can tell by the color of its face and the black top knot, which are just a bunch of feathers. Now, quail hang out in big, big groups of family, and that's one of their sounds to calling for their peeps, basically trying to find their big covey, aunts, uncles, cousins, brothers, sisters, and trying to gather everybody together. Now, when birders go out, they like to say that if they hear that sound, they're hearing this. Repeat after me. Chicago, Chicago, Chicago. Chicago, Chicago, Chicago. That is the sound of the California quail. Now let's listen again, and you can tell me if you think that's the sound of a quail. I gotta put this back up here. Okay, there we go. I guess you can't really tell me, but let's hear it again. Did you hear it? Did you think it said Chicago? I do. So that was the sound of the California state bird. Now I'm going to play the sound of the symbol of America. I bet you know who that is without me even having to tell you, but let's listen. The symbol of America is, well, do you know who it is? You guessed it, it's the bald eagle. And this majestic, regal bird has a call that's so sort of, well, wimpy. It sounds like it would belong more to a really small, sort of nondescript bird that would be moving around on the ground instead of this big, beautiful bird soaring. The call of the bald eagle. Let's hear it one more time. Okay, let's see who's next. Now this is another call that just about anybody living around these parts is going to know. In fact, it doesn't matter where you live in North America. I bet you'll recognize this sound if you're living in an urban area, a rural area, along the coast, in the mountains, and that's because this bird is everywhere. Okay, here we go. I was almost afraid that all of a sudden they were going to come out of the sky. But before I talk about that bird, I want to play for you the call of its cousin. And then we'll talk just a second about the differences between these two. So I bet you know who I'm talking about. Here we go. Well, those two sounds were from the two blackbirds that we see around here. One, the second call, the deeper sound was from this, which is the common raven. And the first sound was from the American crow. Now, unless you saw these two sitting right next to each other, you may not know who is who when they're out flying around. Crows are communal. They're always hanging out with their friends. They fly in groups, sometimes of thousands and thousands. They're much smaller, and then they fly, their tails are in the shape of a square, as opposed to the raven, which is a much larger bird. They hang out pretty much by themselves unless it's mating season. They have a much bigger, chunkier beak, and one of the things about ravens is, if you can see right up here, they have this real shaggy neck feathers, and so it's called a ruff, and they're just kind of messy. So crows and ravens. Let's see who else we have. Okay, how about this one? This call is one that, if you're ever hiking, chances are you've heard this, because this is the most common North American bird of prey. Filmmakers like to use the call of this bird on anything that is about the American West or has big, vast spaces. And that's the sound of the red-tailed hawk. I don't think I'm going to take it off of there, but you can see this beautiful bird, and of course, in the name, red-tailed hawk tells you what its most beautiful feature is. Its big tail that's got a big, beautiful red, dark red color on it. And I think I have one more. So that, the red-tailed hawk, is our diurnal. Again, that's a bird that sleeps at night and wakes up during the day, just like us. Our diurnal bird of prey. And now we're going to finish this off with a nocturnal bird. I'm sure you all are going to know who this is. One of the most famous nocturnal birds. Well, I bet you thought I was going to say an owl, and that sure didn't sound like an owl, but believe it or not, it is. That call, that loud, raspy, harsh call, is from this beautiful bird, a barn owl. White face, kind of a heart-shaped face, and dark black eyes, tells me that this bird flies in the dark of the night in order to swoop down silently on its food to eat. It's also such a beautiful bird. You can see the wings here in all the colors. To me, it looks like little diamonds sparkling on the bird's feathers. Well, I think I'll end this with one last bird. Ooh, it's gonna sit there. Because this is the owl that you will recognize, and it's a nice one to say goodbye. So let me find it, and here we go. I love that sound of the great horned owl, a beautiful, beautiful bird that we find here at night here at Crystal Cove State Park. Well, thank you, Junior Rangers. I hope you enjoyed learning about some of the sounds, the calls, the songs of some of our local birds. And I'm going to close my eyes for just a second and see what I can hear coming in all different directions. And I know there's birds around, and I hope that next time you join us, you'll bring your binoculars and you'll bring your bird ears and go out on a hike and listen for these beautiful sounds. Thanks, Junior Rangers. Bye.